Hey everybody, it's Mr. X Stitch here. I thought I'd drop by with another little video where I wanted to talk about one of the most controversial issues in the whole of cross stitch: what your back should look like. Now there's a story going around town that says that the back of your work should be as neat as the front of your work, and if it isn't as neat as the front of your work, then you do not deserve to live. Maybe I'm putting that a bit strongly. But there's no denying that one of the biggest fears that you get when you're starting out in cross stitch is how your back should look. The back of the work can be a car crash and you can get yourselves in all kinds of anxiety over that. But I'm here now just to put your mind at ease. It does not matter what your back looks like. Let me repeat that more slowly. It does not matter what the back of your work looks like. Particularly when you're starting out, right? You know, when you're starting out, the main aim is for you to get into the rhythm of cross stitch, to learn about how to manage your stitches, to learn about the tension of your stitching and your fabric and stuff. So don't worry about what the back looks like. The single most important thing to remember if you are concerned about the back of your work is that you can hide the back of your work. Look at this piece I did here. It's called a bay, it's based on a design by Shepherd Fairy, and it's on 22 count fabric, which means it's 22 stitches per inch. Now this is actually tent stitch, it's just a single stitch, a bit like the kind of needlepoint stitch you would get, but it's ridiculously small. And when I started out with the design, I thought I was going to try and make it symmetrical. But after a while, I slightly lost my mind trying to keep on top of that. And so, it's good, but I promise you, the back of it is absolutely obscene. Do you know what the best thing is? I covered it over. So you can't see the back of it, and it doesn't matter. As you become more experienced as a craft person, the hope is that you will pay more attention and care over your work. So when you get those situations where you have surprise knots, here's a pro tip, just as an interlude. Every time you make a cross stitch, you're putting a half twist in your thread. It's part of the motion. What happens? It behooves you, yes that's right, it behooves you every now and again to just drop the needle when you're stitching, and it will allow the thread to unwind and it will stop you getting surprise knots in the back. The worst thing about getting a surprise knot in the back of your work and then realizing that maybe you have to unpick a bunch of your work is that nobody else cares. It's the same as if you miscount your stitches. You can realize that you spent half an hour doing something, and because you miscounted when you were following the pattern, it doesn't line up with other elements in the pattern and you have to unpick it. It's a tragedy. But what makes it worse is that nobody else cares. So you just sit there silently unpicking, rip it, rip it, rip it, it's called frogging, rip it, and nobody else cares. So what you want to do as you become a more experienced crafter is take care with your stitching and make sure that these unenforced errors don't happen as often. And part of that process is just about making the back tidier. You may find that as you jump between two different elements of the same colour when you're stitching a bigger design, is that you might choose to weave the thread underneath other existing stitches to stop it getting caught up by other threads. There are little things you can do like that, choosing to park your threads when you finish stitching them with another colour. I'll make another video about that one day, and then carrying on with them when you get to them, rather than snipping it off and having to tie off and those sorts of things. We don't really want, if we can help it, to have a back that is really bulbous because of all the thread-based carnage that's on the rear of it. But to reiterate my first point, it does not matter. I have yet to find record in history of a life that was lost by there being an untidy back. I promise you. So don't sweat it, okay? You will get tidier as time goes on. But the other philosophy to have is that it's interesting. The back of your work tells the story of how you made the work. You can look at it and you can see the areas where you've jumped between different elements and how you've added other colours and those sorts of things, and that's what makes it creative. In my book, The Mr. X Stitch Guide to Cross Stitch, check out the video you can find a pattern called back in black. And the idea of the pattern is it's a question mark, but it's a reverse question mark. And what you're meant to do is cross stitch that pattern in reverse and then turn the design round so that in order for people to see the question mark properly, they have to look at the back of your work. It is indeed one of the designs I've made that has put the most fear into the most stitchers. And when I go and do workshops, if someone rocks up and says they're an experienced stitcher, I lay that question mark down and I invite them to have a go at it. As you can see in this video, there's a few examples of the question mark and you can see how amazing the back can look. The variegated one in red and grey is the one I did, and by no means it is perfect. But it doesn't matter, it makes it more interesting. You may be the kind of person who wants things to be nice and neat and tidy, and I promise you that if you persist with your stitching, you will improve. You will learn the ways, you will slow down, you will be more mindful about it. But if you're new to it, please don't let these things get on top of you. Please don't let it put you off. If somebody comes up to you and they say that the back of your work needs to be as neat as the front of your work, they're just angry about something. They're angry because you're younger and better looking or smarter or I don't know what, but they're not being very caring. If they were being caring, they would try and express the sentiment I've got, is that we all want to improve, but it doesn't matter how long that takes. Improvement comes through practice and practice takes time, so don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up about what your first cross stitch ever looks like. The story goes, I made this story up. The story goes that when Michelangelo first started making things out of marble, it looked like shit. And he went on to produce some of the most beautiful marble work ever. So do not worry about it, my friend. Just take your time, enjoy your stitching, and don't worry about the back. Anybody has any other questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you find anybody who has a problem, send them my way and I'll set them straight. I promise you. This has been a public stitching information film brought to you with love by me, Mr. X-Stitch, the kingpin of contemporary embroidery. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did like the video, please feel free to like the video and hopefully you'll subscribe to the channel as well. I'm Mr. X-Stitch, I'm the kingpin of contemporary embroidery and I'm here to change the way you think about needlework. So if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe to the channel and join us for the ride. Thanks very much.